Welcome, everyone. My name is Scot Harker, and we're really glad you're here. I'm a certified gut health specialist, and I work with men and women who are struggling with low energy, gut issues, inflammation, and blood sugar imbalance, and we help them reset their health naturally. And I'm especially excited tonight that I'm joined by some good friends, Bob Huntiga, and I don't know if Kim Raingard is on here yet or not. Hopefully she is. She wasn't just a second, but hopefully she joins us, and then Cheryl Simon. Bob's gonna be giving our science talk tonight, and then Kim and Cheryl are going to be sharing their testimonies about how their lives have been changed regarding a protocol that we're going to share tonight. And inside this Zoom tonight, you're going to discover what inflammation is really about from the inside out, what your metabolism and energy, why it's stuck, the hidden gut and blood sugar connection, and a simple starting point that you can begin to reset your metabolic system. So we're glad you're here tonight. Feel free to drop questions in the chat. And here we go. All right. I want you to take a look at this picture on your screen tonight. Bob, can you see the screen? Just want to make sure my slides are working.
Yes, we can see
Oh,
him.
all right, great. So I want you to take a look here if you're joining tonight or if you're watching this recording and take a look if you've got any of these issues. Maybe you're dealing with cravings, brain fog, poor sleep, maybe type 2 diabetes or blood sugar issues. Maybe you're having issues with weight around the middle, obesity. If you've got any of those, maybe put what you've got in the chat, one of those, or if you've got two of them, put them in the chat. We'd like to hear and see what you're dealing with tonight. Um, but what if I told you, and there's other things like that aren't on this list, like gut issues, IBS, Crohn's, psoriasis. So couldn't get them all around the circle, but things that deal with inflammation. And what if I told you that these aren't separate problems? What if I told you tonight these are all connected? And I don't know if anybody's ever told you that, but most doctors really treat these separately. In fact, for all these things around this circle, there is a doctor for almost every one of these. But tonight we're going to be talking about how these all have a common root cause. And that root cause is called insulin resistance. Tonight's not about willpower, it's not about laziness, it's about a hormone. And once you understand what we're going to talk about tonight, I think things are going to really start to make sense. So, welcome. But before we talk about insulin resistance, we need to understand what insulin really is. Hang on a second, I'm getting a beep down here on my thing. Insulin comes from a small organ that's right behind your stomach called the pancreas. It's not very big, but it has a very massive job and it's very, very important. You see, every time you eat, your blood sugar, it rises. Your pancreas senses that rise and releases what we call a hormone called insulin. And insulin is a hormone that is produced by the pancreas that acts like a key to unlock the cells so sugar can enter. So the sugar that's in your bloodstream, that pancreas takes it, or the insulin takes that sugar out of your bloodstream and feeds the cells. So insulin, sometimes we think of it as the enemy, but it's not. It's absolutely necessary. And without insulin, you can't use that sugar as fuel. So I want you to think of it like this. Have you ever had, felt tired right after eating, or you've done something like that and you start to have a crash? That starts to tell us really how insulin is working and how that key is working. You see, the problem isn't insulin. The problem is the key stops working properly, and that's insulin resistance. So let's take a picture of this, and maybe this will tell you what it kind of gives you a better idea of what insulin resistance is. When you're insulin resistant, your cells are starving while your blood is overloaded with sugar. That's insulin resistance. Your cells are becoming deaf to insulin. When the insulin is working properly, like the healthy cell you see in there, the green, the insulin goes onto the insulin receptor on the cell and then locks that door to allow glucose to enter into the cell. Energy is produced and you get more stable blood sugar. And so you have energy and your cells are being fed properly. But when you're insulin resistant, the insulin doesn't work as a key anymore and your door doesn't open quite as wide to the cell. And so the sugar is not getting into the cell and feeding the cell. And that's why we're starting to starve the cells. And that's why our body feels like it's not working with us anymore. It's working against us because because it's a real hormonal issue. It's not about calories, it's really about signaling. And when that signaling is broken, everything downstream is going to start to break. So the question is how did that signaling get blocked? Well, when insulin stays high, your body can't burn fat. And I'm not going to go too much into that tonight because Bob's going to really go into the details of this and to get into about inflammation and some more things around that circle we shared tonight. But it's important to understand that when that insulin is high, okay, your body cannot burn fat. It doesn't matter how hard you try. It's like a switch. It switches on and says, I'm going to still store that fat. And so belly fat increases, triglycerides rise, so our stroke risk increases, right? And high insulin also creates those energy crashes because what happens is when your insulin goes up real sharply, then the blood sugar drops. And that's what's causing our crashes. And you get cravings, and then you want more food, and then you get spikes again. So then you can get into brain fog, mood swings, and irritability because we're on this roller coaster that constantly happens. So, as you see in this picture here, what I want to talk about this is that a lot of times we've been told to eat 6 to 8 small meals a day, right, to keep your metabolism healthy. But every time that we eat, even something small, that insulin rises, and that's normal. But here's the problem. When we eat breakfast, we get an insulin spike. When we snack, we get a spike. When we lunch, we get a spike. When we snack again in the afternoon, we get a spike. And at dinner, our insulin goes up. And if insulin stays elevated, your body never switches out of storage mode. So your body never gets a chance to rest. And so we stay in fat storage mode all the time if we are constantly eating 6 to 8 small meals a day. And so what we want to try to do is unlock that vault by giving our body a chance to rest. And that's called fasting or time-based eating. And if we allow that insulin to drop and stay low long enough, the body shifts from fat storage mode to burn mode. Okay. And Bob will be talking a little bit more about fasting later. And the power of fasting isn't deprivation, it's giving insulin enough time to fall enough to unlock that storage and start to burn that fat. So, one of the things that's caused this problem is that the way we eat. We stripped a lot of the fiber out of our food, okay? And its connection to insulin resistance and blood sugar spikes is because we've dropped that fiber. Fiber helps keep our blood sugar spikes low. Fiber isn't just about digestion, right? But it helps lower that insulin, and fiber feeds the gut bacteria and feeds your gut and helps heal and seal that gut. And I know Bob's going to go into that a lot more, but this is one of the reasons that we're having poor gut health and why we are becoming more insulin resistant. So we have a solution for that, and that's called the Feel Great Protocol. And I'm just going to quickly introduce it because Bob's going to go into much more detail of what our tools use. But right after this, I want to get into some testimonies about this Feel Great Protocol. And so we use a couple tools. One is a fiber. I hope you guys can see this on my screen. But one is a fiber that we use that I use in my practice, helping people heal and seal and repair their gut and help them their gut health become better. And in turn, then we start becoming less insulin resistant. Our immune system gets better, and also our mood and stability gets better because of we're starting to produce the serotonin and the dopamine like we should be. And then we use another tool that we're going to be talking about tonight that helps us stay satiated, helps us stay and during our fast mode, helps us where we don't want to eat as much and reduces that food noise. So very simple protocol, and we're going to show you how we use this. What I want to do is get to next is about this protocol. We've got a couple testimonies, and I don't know if everybody's on here tonight. Can't see who's all on here, but I want to get to, is Kim on here tonight? Kim, if you are, can you unmute? I can't see if you're on here or not. See if she's joined. Okay. I don't know if she's on. So let's go ahead and let's go to go to Cheryl. We got a great picture of Cheryl up here and her transformation. I want to introduce to you Cheryl Simon. If you could come off and mute, Cheryl, and share with your story about what it looked like before the protocol and after the protocol, what insulin resistance looked like for you, and what's your life look like now. If you don't mind sharing, I'd love for you to come off mute and share with the group what that looks like for you.
I am off mute, and thank you for inviting me, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here. Scott's a new friend. In fact, tonight's the first time that I've spoken to him, but I have seen some of the other Zooms and videos with Scott. And then Bob Huddinga, I've known for over 30 years. Bob was my doctor, and Bob's the one that said, I think you need to look at this. And after 30 years, when Bob Huddinga speaks, you listen. And so that's what I did. What you're seeing here in the pictures, that's me with my son of the heart. He was a student of mine and now he's family. He also is on the protocol. And then the lower picture was taken this past Tuesday. So how did I get started? Let me go back. Um, I'm 77 years old and I have been an insomniac for over 30 years. When I went through menopause, that's when that happened. That's when I became an insomniac. And to me, that meant sleeping 2 to 4 hours or not at all. And I tried everything. I had hormone treatment, hormone creams, homeopathic, naturopathics, uh, all natural remedies. It didn't matter. Nothing helped me. So I've spent 30 years basically not sleeping. And that's a horrible place to be because for me, having been obese all my life and coming from an obese family, you eat your way out of it. That's what I did. Um, but after menopause stole my energy, for some reason over the last 6 years, my fatigue has increased. Um, I mean, bone deep fatigue. And nobody could help me. I got sympathy from physicians. I paid for tests that insurance doesn't cover. They showed absolutely nothing. My blood work told me I'm not pre-diabetic. My A1C is normal. I had elevated cholesterol and triglycerides, but not to the point where the doctors recommended anything, but did not explain my fatigue. But I was 50 pounds overweight. I'm a caregiver for a husband with Alzheimer's and dementia, although he still is at a stage 2 and functions very well. I began to panic about if I don't have enough energy to take care of me, how am I going to take care of him? And the only thing that I could latch onto was the obesity, the weight, the extra weight. So if I could just lose some weight, maybe I would have more energy. I had a daughter who was very successful on Zepbound. That's one of the shots. So I decided to do Zepbound. And I was on it about 6 months. I did lose weight, but at a terrible price. My fatigue was much worse. I spent many, many days in bed, not sleeping, but just not able to function. I didn't have enough energy to get up and do anything. I didn't tell my doctor. I didn't tell my family because the weight was coming off. Quite often, I would experience my blood pressure dropping. I'd be standing at the island, all of a sudden, I can't breathe, I'm weak, I'm dizzy. Take my blood pressure, it's 80 over 55. That's not where blood pressure belongs. Um, I just, the shots were horrible for me. Then I get this text from Bob that says, you better look at this. I think you should look at this. So I did. And Bob knows I'll do my research. I read everything. I got into the actual studies that were done. And I said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. And so I quit the shots cold turkey. Anybody on the shots, don't do that. It's not recommended. I didn't have any trouble. As soon as I learned I shouldn't have done that, I consulted a GLP-1 specialist who was on a Zoom meeting where she mentioned that. She got right back to me, asked me about symptoms. I didn't have any. So she said, "You're fine. Just don't expect to lose any weight right away. If you're on artificial GLP-1, it's going to take a while for your natural GLP-1 to kick in." And actually, it took me about 2 months before I lost or gave up any weight. But I never gained an ounce. And I think that's important for people to know who are on shots because that's one of the greatest fears. If you stop the shots, you're going to gain your weight back. I never gained an ounce in 2 months. Had no cravings. Um, the food brain never kicked in. It was amazing. It was amazing. So I I began to feel better in about 3 days. I said to myself, huh, I think I have a little energy. Not very much, but it just seemed there was some there. And the other thing that happened with the Unimate was a sense of well-being, a sense of calm, a sense of hope that came from drinking that. And so I really didn't care about releasing any more weight. In 2 weeks, I was sleeping 8 hours a night. 30 years of insomnia, and I'm sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night, restful sleep. I have more energy than I can use. It is an absolutely life-changing experience. That's what Feel Great did for me. And I'm never going to not take it. I'm always going to drink it.
Awesome.
I absolutely love it. And I also love getting other people to get healthy on it. I talked to 8 different people today, and I think 7 of them will be on it by the end of next week.
Great. It's a great testimony, Cheryl. I really appreciate that. It's the first time I've heard your testimony, and what
Thank
a
you.
what a great transformation. And you can see
It's
this in the picture.
amazing.
Look how great you
It's
look.
amazing.
You look wonderful.
Thank
So
you.
that's awesome. So thank you, and I'm going to say congratulations. I mean, really, to take that step and do that, and then to also be sharing it. That's why we're on here tonight. Is we're all passionate about the transformation that's made in our lives. Um, I don't know if Kim, I don't see Kim on. Okay, so what we're going to do is go on, and if she comes in at any time, we'll add her testimony on at the end. I will just say, since she's not here, I'm just going to share mine very just in 2 seconds here. My wife and I both have used this product for a little over a year now. I lost 45 pounds in 16 weeks. She lost 40 pounds in about 18 weeks, and just has made a big change in our lives. And the other thing is, in about 9 to 10 months into the program and the protocol, she was able to get rid of her antidepressants that she'd been on for over 30 years. And
Wow.
that was just so big for her, right? She didn't want to take them, and she was able to step away from those. And I'm not going to say any more about our testimony tonight, but it's just I have to go along with you, Cheryl, and just to say, hey, what it's done for us and our family, and this is why we're on here tonight as well. So I don't think Kim's going to be joining us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just introduce Bob here. I'm really excited about this next part because um, you're about to hear from someone who brings not just knowledge, but decades of real world experience. Bob is new to me. I've got to know Bob over the last few weeks, done a couple different lives with him. Bob has been a physician's assistant for, I think, for over 50 years. and for the past 25 years been deeply involved in integrative medicine, helping people look beyond just symptoms and start addressing root causes. He and his wife also founded and ran a health store alongside his clinical work. And so he's been on the front line guiding people toward natural solutions day in and day out for a long time, as a testimony from Cheryl and what how he's helped her. And, I appreciate Bob because he doesn't just talk theory. He spent decades helping people who felt stuck, inflamed, out of balance, and starting to heal. So I'm just really excited to have Bob be on here tonight, share with us about inflammation, why so many people feel tired, foggy, and out of sync. So just want to say welcome, Bob. And I'm going to shut my slides off and turn this over to you. And thanks for joining us tonight and sharing with us.
Thank you, Scott. Hi, my name is Bob Huttinga. About 20 years ago, Barb and I started the Healing Center in Lakeview, Michigan. A few years back, we sold the business to Mark and Tanya Nichols, and they operate it today. So one of my old mentors, Dr. Bruce Bennett, said, you have to be a healer and a technician and a scientist. Tonight, I'm a scientist and a teacher. Now, we're all familiar with the rusting metal. Inside your body, that rusting is called oxidation. We have a motto, put your health in your own hands. Speaking of hands, just for those who are new, take a look at this. 15 days on the field grade system. Bad looking eczema, much, much better. Healthy metabolism. That is how well your cells use the food that you eat, turning it into energy without creating a massive amount of inflammation and toxic waste in the process. There's two kinds of inflammation. Acute, from an injury, you twist your ankle, you get a lot of swelling and redness. This is part of the healing process. But then chronic inflammation, that's from old injury and from tissue damage. So you can have joint pain, fatigue, fibromyalgia, autoimmune disorders. Chronic inflammation. Imagine your body is a house. Metabolic health means that the electricity works, the pipes flow, the trash is taken out. But right now, most people are living in a house where things don't work very well, and the house is slowly catching fire. That fire is chronic inflammation. Inflammation starts in the gut. What are we feeding our microbiome? Microbiome is a word that stands for all the trillions of bacteria that live in your digestive tract. So processed foods, sugars, chemicals, these are things that our body was never designed to handle. This causes the gut lining to weaken, allowing toxins to leak back into the bloodstream. That leakage triggers the immune system, which is a major cause of inflammation. So what is leaky gut? This is what the lining of your colon and small intestine look like, and they're held together by something called tight junctions. Now, when you have a leaky gut, the highly processed food cause damage to the gut lining, and toxins and undigested food enter the blood through these loose junctions. Think about types of paper. You could have filter paper, the water goes right through it. You can also have paper that's used for watercolor painting. The water does not go through that. So these things that enter your blood look foreign to your immune system. And so your immune system triggers a reaction and releases chemicals called cytokines. These cytokines travel to all the cells in your body, and they can physically damage cell membranes. And when the damage occurs, it releases more cytokines. So the first source of inflammation is called acellular carbohydrates. When you eat fruit and vegetables, the sugar is trapped inside of the plant cells. Your gut has to work hard to break down those cell walls, so the sugar hits your bloodstream slowly. With processed food, those cellular walls are already broken down. Now sugar explodes into your gut and into the bloodstream, and you get sugar spikes and insulin spikes. And you get an immediate inflammatory response from your immune system. That's like throwing gasoline on a fire. Second source of chronic inflammation are industrial seed oils. Things like soybean, corn, canola, sunflower, vegetable oils. Now, these oils are very high in omega-6s. Healthy cells have a phospholipid layer made up of omega-3 and omega-6s, and they are in about a 1-to-1 ratio. But these seed oils have too many omega-6s. And as a result, you get cell walls that are made up of too much omega-6. They become weak and they oxidize easily, constantly releasing inflammatory cytokines. So an example would be if you were going to build a brick wall with some bricks and some foam block. This is what cell membranes look like. This is that phospholipid layer. It's nice and tight. There are receptors. There are pumps that move materials in and out of the cell. Oxygen comes in, carbon dioxide goes out. This is the nucleus. These are the mitochondria. And there's all kinds of other little microscopic organisms inside of your cells. And a healthy cell looks like this. Now, this is overly dramatic, but you can see that this phospholipid layer is not healthy, and there's lots of damage in the cell wall. The main source of inflammation is a diet that spikes your insulin, a diet that builds your cell walls out of inflammatory cells. That is a perfect storm for a leaky gut. So part of the solution is you got to stop eating those things that are found in this aisle in the grocery store. And if you do that, you would eliminate much of the inflammatory load in your body. So the Feel Great system has two parts. First part is intermittent fasting. So no food intake for 12 to 18 hours. We usually recommend that you start with a fasting of 10 or 12 hours and gradually work up to 16 to 18 hours. During that time, your gut rests and heals. The Feel Great system has two tools that help. The first is Unimate, and the second is balance. Does Unimate calm inflammation? Well, there's no magic powder that cancels out a bad lifestyle. So if you're eating seed oils and sugar all day, drinking Unimate is like tossing a cup of water in a house fire. It doesn't save the house. Does Unimate help calm inflammation? Well, let's look at the science of Unimate. This product is found in the PDR. And Unimate is a concentrated, specialized extract of yerba mate. These plants are grown on a farm that is owned by Unicity, and they have very tight controls of these plants, and they are processed at a very specific time. This isn't just a tea. It's a specific preparation of yerba mate, chlorogenic acid, and 3 other ingredients. Chlorogenic acid is a potent polyphenol. It's an antioxidant. Remember the spots in your cell walls that are oxidizing from excess omega-6s? Well, these release free radicals. Chlorogenic acid acts as a scavenger. It hunts down and neutralizes free radicals before they can damage other cell membranes. So by lowering the oxidation, you lower the alarm signal that keep the immune system overactive. High insulin is inflammatory. Chlorogenic acid can stimulate the release of GLP-1, that stands for glucagon-like peptide number 1, in the gut. Now you've all heard of Ozempic and these synthetic drugs. When your body produces its own GLP-1, it slows down gastric emptying and improves insulin sensitivity. Our insulin levels drop. So normalizing the insulin response removes fuel from the inflammatory fire. Unimate also contains saponins. These help improve energy and clarity. It helps your body burn fat for fuel during fasting. The visceral fat is not just stored energy. It crowds your organs, and the visceral fat is actually an organ itself that pumps out enzymes and inflammatory cytokines. So if you can burn that fat, you are physically removing another source of inflammation. Is Unimate a miracle? No. Does it work? Yes. It works by hacking the hunger signals and providing a massive dose of antioxidants to calm down the cellular oxidation. You use it as a tool to extend your fasting window. This gives your gut a break from digestion and allows inflammation to settle. But you must use it strategically. It is not just a drink to wash down a donut. You sip on it where you feel hunger or cravings. The biggest sources of inflammation. The first is acellular carbohydrates. The second, seed oils. Third, blood sugar and insulin spikes. And inflammatory LDL cholesterol. Unicity Balance is the solution to that. Balance is a patented fiber-rich drink, also found in the PDR, and it contains 7 ingredients. When you drink it before your meal, it coats the inside of your stomach and intestines, and it traps the refined sugars and starches, so there's no explosive sugar and insulin spikes. Sugar just trickles into the bloodstream. It also helps heal the leaky gut. Balance feeds the microbiome. So the microbiome, all those healthy microorganisms, our digestive tract does not have enzymes to digest fiber. But the good bacteria love the fiber, and as they ferment the fiber, they create a compound called butyrate. This is a fatty acid that heals the bowel lining. It reduces the leaky gut by tightening up those junctions, and it signals the immune system to calm down. Incidentally, using Balance does produce odorless gas. If your gas is bad smelling, that means you don't have enough diversity in your microbiome. What is butyrate? Well, it's a short-chain fatty acid. It's produced by the good bugs when they ferment the fiber. Most cells use sugar for fuel, except the colon lining cells. These cells use butyrate for their energy. So colon cells become healthier, the bonds become tighter, and the leaky gut begins to disappear. It is also a natural anti-inflammatory. When undigested food, toxins, and bacteria are no longer absorbed back into the blood, the inflammatory cytokines are not released. Your immune system is amazingly complex. It is a surveillance system looking for invaders, just like a security system. However, it has a limited capacity. Infections and malignancies can sneak past this system when it is too busy fighting off undigested food and toxins that are allowed in by our leaky digestive system. The function of the colon is to reabsorb water from the material coming from the small intestine, but it's also a farm. It uses the fiber in our food to feed the good bugs, and that butyrate heals the leaky gut. That provides a massive reduction in the inflammatory load. So, just a note about probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics are supplements that are good bacteria, like Lactobacillus, Bifidobacterium, and Unicity has a product called Probiotic Plus. Now, most probiotics on the market don't get past your stomach acid or your body heat. So be sure to use probiotics that are not the refrigerated kind. Now, you normally don't need to supplement with a probiotic if you're feeding the normal bacteria that are already there, and they can continue to reproduce themselves. Now, if you have diarrhea in the beginning, then you probably need something like prebiotics or fibers that feed these bacteria. Since most of us do not have enough fiber in our usual diet, these good bacteria cannot reproduce themselves. So in that case, you might need to take a probiotic. Balance binds bile acids. Bile from your liver contains a lot of cholesterol. Actually, most gallstones are made of cholesterol. When the fiber binds the bile, it removes cholesterol. But without fiber, LDL cholesterol is reabsorbed. By cycling out the LDL in your bowel movements, you reduce the inflammatory LDL in your blood. So let's take a look at inflammatory LDL for a minute. The inside of your arteries are lined by these big flat cells called epithelial cells. LDL cholesterol has multiple sizes. Some are large, fluffy ones like Nerf balls, and some are hard and dense. These hard and dense ones can get underneath this lining and create an inflammation. Your body comes in and fixes that inflammation by creating scar tissue and eventually actually putting calcium into this plaque. That calcium is what causes hardening of the arteries. So balance is a shock absorber. It reduces the sugar and insulin spikes. It feeds the microbiome, producing butyrate. It removes inflammatory cholesterol, inflammation sources, refined sugars and starches, seed oil, lack of fiber and unhealthy microbiome, small dense LDL cholesterol, and visceral fat. Solutions to inflammation. Intermittent fasting reduces visceral fat. Eating whole foods and avoiding acellular carbohydrates. Avoiding seed oils such as deep fried food and chips. Unamate reduces food and sugar craving. It is a potent anti-inflammatory and a free radical scavenger. It increases GLP-1 within your own body. Balance slows sugar and insulin spikes. It maintains a healthy microbiome. It heals a leaky gut and reduces LDL cholesterol. Stop the rusting from inside out. Now you know how. You must decide if you desire to do something about it. Do it for yourself, not because some other well-meaning person wants you to. When you're ready, get with the person who invited you onto this call. Take that first step today. Now, this might be you. The people around you probably think you're nuts. They're following the old system, but you know better. So put your health in your own hands.
Bob, I've got a question for you. Sorry I didn't give you this to think about, so don't want to catch you off guard. But if you were to think over your last, while you've been practicing, what's the big when we think about this inflammation? What would you say the biggest mistake is people make in regards to their health? If we were to talk, just in general, and I know there's a lot of different things, but what's the biggest in your mind? What's the biggest mistake we make?
Well, now I understand that it's mostly our diet. Um, Prior to getting involved in this program, we treated inflammation with anti-inflammatories. And of course, those medicines can be very damaging to your kidneys. We really didn't have any tools, and the dietary and nutritional information that we had was very limited. So I didn't even realize that uh, your diet was a source of inflammation.
Hmm.
So 50 years of doing this and 25 years of natural health, well, we started using herbs and anti-inflammatories that were plant sources, but it was still the same philosophy. So the big thing that I understand now is what we eat makes the difference.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's great. I thank you for that. And that's a great presentation. I think one of the most, and this is what I kind of geek out on, honestly, is around the gut because that's my specialty, right? Of how important the gut is to our overall well-being, and how that feedback loop and communicating with our brain. One thing I would add tonight is how this impacts our thought process because there's this gut brain connection that happens called, the gut's our second brain, right? And tonight, if you're on this call and you're dealing with issues, and you get to the point where you're saying, "Hey, it's a willpower issue, whether it's eating or whether you're trying to get metabolically healthier." A lot of times, it's not a metabolic or it's not a willpower type of issue. There's really something going on there. Bob, was talking about tonight the microbiome. And when you have more bad microbiome versus the good microbiome, right? That bad microbiome craves those carbs and those bad things for us, right? And so that's why this product works is it starts to feed the good microbiome and causes to flourish. And then we start to crave the good foods for us, right? And so there's a real physiological thing that goes on in our gut that's so important to helping us heal from the inside out, right? And so that's what the system does for us. And I'm going to bring some slides up here to finish this out tonight. Did Kim ever join us? Kim, if you're
Scott,
on, yes,
Scott, it's Cheryl.
yes,
There are a couple of very good questions in the chat that I
okay,
think you or Bob or both should address.
okay. I
One
answered one of
from
them.
AB. Does having the duodenum removed affect the pancreas, insulin production, and hormones? I'm trying to determine if I need to do anything special to make the system work for me. I started 2 days ago.
Do you want to answer that, Bob, or do you want to take a shot at that?
Uh,
I'm looking for it.
I'm trying.
How's a duodenum, removed? How does having the duodenum removed
Okay.
affect pancreas insulin production?
Gastric bypass. She's our gastric bypass guest on
Oh,
tonight.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So what happens with the bypass is they take a little piece of the small bowel and hook it to the stomach and then hook it into the small bowel at a different location. So some of the food actually bypasses the gallbladder and the pancreas. And it basically is removing some of the fuel. The problem with bypasses, and they're not done very much anymore because uh, very many people just gain their weight back after their procedure.
because it doesn't really get at the healing of what we're talking about. It doesn't
No.
really impact insulin resistance, for example, if
Right.
that is our real problem, right? Yeah, I look at it as a temporary solution because we end up reducing calories and things like that, but it doesn't get us to the healing point where we're starting to heal the gut. It doesn't help with healing insulin resistance. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Bob, or not.
Yes. There's another question about protein. Um,
Where's that one at?
Certainly on this program, protein really doesn't spike insulin, so you need to make sure that you have plenty. Unicity does have several protein products that are very effective, so that is a possibility. But you need to, if you have trouble with getting enough protein, you just have to eat more meat and uh, things that have lots of protein in them.
Right,
Another question,
think
Bob. Once you reach a goal and feel well, do you adjust your products?
It really depends on what happens with the individual. I think that a lot of times this helps us get to an ideal weight. Now, we may not think that we should be at that ideal weight, but our bodies are a lot smarter than we are, and on this program, I've always been kind of a thin guy with a big belly. The big belly has disappeared. I've eliminated 30 pounds, but I'm a lot thinner than I think I should be. because that's because some of the fat has come out of the muscle as well. But it's stabilized, and I'm eating more, but still following the program.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the protein, right, prioritizing protein, fiber, and healthy fats, and then your carbohydrates, right? That's really important
Yeah.
because that protein will spike that sugar spike or that insulin spike less. So
Yeah.
staying high on protein. Okay. Well, let me go ahead
Mhm.
and show some. Are there any other questions that we want to address? We got about 10 minutes, and I'd like to get to the other slides, but we'll take one more question if they're out there. I don't see any more.
I would just say that if anybody has specific questions, just get a hold of me on Facebook Messenger. I'll be happy to talk to you and give you a little bit of advice.
All right. Well, let me just take us through and close us out with this. I want to share a little bit about actually, if you're not familiar with the product, of how we use it. I'm having a little trouble with my slides here. Just a second. Can you guys see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So Bob talked about our two products, and we talked about them earlier. We've got two tools that we use. One is the yerba mate, and I just want to explain how we use this. This is a drink that we take in the morning instead of eating breakfast, and we sip on this throughout the morning. So if you can see, I've got a bottle here. Basically, some people just, yep, your bottle's getting there. Bob's got his bottle too. The AI took it out there, but yeah. So we just mix this up in the mornings, and I sip on this throughout the day, out to lunch. And when mine starts to get a little bit down, then I turn around and add some more water and this helps keep me hydrated. I will tell you, some people like this cold and some people like it hot. I love mine cold. My wife likes it hot. And so we just drink on this in the morning. And instead of eating our breakfast, you can still have coffee and teas, but don't put sugars and things like that in it because the intent is to stay in a fasted mode as long as you can until your lunchtime. And then at lunchtime, if it's your largest meal of the day or your heaviest carb laden, what I usually tell my clients is then we take one of the fibers that comes in two flavors, a berry flavor or an orange flavor, and I usually take this between 15 to 30 minutes before. Some people take it right before. I like it to settle this a little bit about 15 minutes before because it allows you to then start to feel full and whatnot. Or you take this in the evening at your dinner time, supper time, if that's your biggest meal of the day. Sometimes some people take two of them. In the afternoon, instead of having a snack around 2 or 3 o'clock or right after lunch, you can take your second yerba mate and you take that to help you get through the afternoon, to keep your energy up, to keep you so where you don't feel, you get rid of that food noise. And we use this in the afternoon. So two tools. Take two of these a day, the yerba mate that Bob talked about, and all the benefits around that, and your fiber. I'm going to tell you my history in gut health. In gut health, this is the best fiber I've been able to find. Um, just hands down. I had ulcerative colitis for many years. I've used this and it's been tremendous in helping me. So if you're dealing with IBS or ulcerative colitis or things like this has been the best fiber that I've ever found to be able to help us. So let's talk a little bit more about it. Everything tonight we talked about is lowering glucose load, feeding the gut, giving insulin space to reduce inflammation. And that's just not theory. It's a system that really works, and it's been proven and backed by clinical studies. 20 plus clinical studies. You can see on the screen there tonight all the different universities that have done studies with it. It has 5+ patents, and I think two more that are pending. Bob mentioned earlier it's in the PDR, and what that means, it's in the physician's desk reference. If you go to pdr.net, that's where physicians, pharmacists can go in and look at how things are dosed. If there's contraindications, meaning conflicts with other medicines or what the reactions are in there. This is a nutraceutical. It's in there, bringing some credibility to it as it's made it in the PDR. And so you can go to your doctor and show them and look these two things up in there, and it's right there. And you can do that tonight. You don't have to be a doctor to do that, but your doctor's able to do it. It's safe, it's natural. The other thing that we didn't talk about is it's guaranteed. Um, Meaning that this comes with a 90-day money back guarantee. If it doesn't work for you, you don't like it, we want you to give it a 90-day, a 90-day try. We really want you to give it a year try, because if you think about it, most of us spent 20, 30 years treating our body in such a way of not feeding it right, doing that. So if you think about it, a company that's willing to take something that we've been doing to our bodies 15, 20, 30 years, maybe longer, and turn it around in 90 days and start to make progress really says something about the product and how the company stands behind it. And then we look at it as cost neutral to, if not cost savings. In fact, in our family, we save $5 to $10 a day easy per person that uses it, because we're not eating breakfast and inherently we're eating less food. And in this system, in this protocol, we don't tell you how much food to eat. What'll happen is, as naturally as you start to get healthier and as the product works, you'll eat less, you'll tend to eat right, and you're going to save money that way. Plus, you're not snacking and you're not eating breakfast in the morning. And then and it's only about $5.30 a day for that. And it's in 60, I think it's in 62 countries now, which is a pretty darn big deal to be able to get something like this in other countries and certified to be able and to be sold. So this is something that, being something that's guaranteed, is all natural. You can't lose on it. We've seen it help so many people. My family has personally witnessed it. You've heard with Cheryl and Bob tonight. I know there's other people on here tonight that have used the product. They've invited you here. Bob already showed this, but get with the person who invited you to view this Feel Great presentation tonight. And, if they've invited you, reach out to them. They'd love to talk to you, talk to Bob, talk to Cheryl, get a hold of me. We're all on Facebook. We'd be glad to talk to you and walk through this with you. It's life changing. It's been life changing for us. Bob, Cheryl, do you have anything else you'd like to add at the end here?
No, all set. And just if somebody does have questions, I'm more than happy to talk to them.
Yeah.
Same
Well,
here.
Bob, Cheryl, thank you so much for joining tonight. Really appreciated the testimony. Bob, appreciate the knowledge you sharing with us tonight. It was a great presentation. Everybody that, tonight you that was on here, you could have been somewhere else, right? But you've invested in your time and your health to join us tonight. Thank you so much for joining. We really, really appreciate it. And have a good night. I'll get a copy out to Bob and to Cheryl and other folks that want to. We're going to put it on our Facebook pages so you can rewatch it. Share the video with folks so that they can get the same knowledge and to reach out to us. So thank you very much, and thank you for being on here tonight. Good night.
Thank you, Scott.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye. There we go.